All right, welcome back to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the most inspiring place on earth for today's edition of the Pro Football Hall of Fame series Before the Snap. If you've never tuned in with us before and this is your first time, first off, thank you for giving some of your time today. Welcome back to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the most inspiring place on earth for today's edition. We had a little bit of feedback issue there. I apologize for that. Hey, but that's technology, you know. So as I was saying, if this is your first time tuning in, thank you so much for giving some of your time. What you're going to learn about today are different careers in and around the NFL. You know, when you go to college, a lot of people want to be athletic director. They want to be a coach. They want to work in marketing or advertising or maybe even a museum like us here at the Hall of Fame. But what this program here is to showcase all the different careers in and around the NFL. I am super excited for today's because this is our first time we've gotten to talk to somebody who works in the field that we're highlighting today. If you tune in with us before, again, thank you so much. You know what's in store for today. And we're excited to have you tuned in as part of the program. My name is Jake Ray, and I'm the Youth and Education Manager here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, where it's our mission to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence everywhere. And those values we promote are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. Not only do they make our Hall of Famers great football players, and you know what led them to have those bronze busts here in Canton, Ohio, but it made them great men, great members of their community, brothers, sons, fathers, whatever it might be. And those same values can make you a great employee, whether you work in the sports organization or you don't. Those values can make you not only a great employee, but most importantly, a great person. You'll be surprised even today, talking about careers and jobs and how to get a job. You'll hear these values pop up in all these answers. It just goes to show how important they are. Before we do get started, I do have some thank yous I want to pass out. First of all, our special guest today, Mr. Mike Myers, and I promise that is just a coincidence that we have Mike Myers on Halloween weekend. I'm not going to get into any jokes because I'm sure he's had that his entire life. But thank you so much for giving time out of your day today. We'll say it a few times. You know, the game of football is not just a week in, week out job for 18 weeks in the NFL season. For us at the Hall of Fame, it's not just a job that takes place the first week of August. There's so many different pieces and parts to a football career that span the entire year. And it's truly impacting a great job to have. And we're going to learn all about what Mike does today. So Mike, thank you for being a part of the program. Secondly, I want to thank our educators, professors, teachers, anybody who shared their program out today or who are tuned into the program on our YouTube stream today. Thank you for just letting us be a small part of your students' learning experience. And then lastly, and you know, most importantly, I want to thank those students. You know, the program today doesn't take place without you guys. As I say every week, nobody wants to hear me ask any questions today. Nobody wants to hear Kara talk the entire time. We want to hear what you have. We want to hear your questions. So don't be afraid. Submit your questions. Put them in the YouTube chat. Nathan's a little busy today, so we got Kara stepping in his role. He's there. She's going to be monitoring our YouTube chat to see all those great questions that we have. So like always, your name, the school you go to, and ask your question. And don't hesitate to be the first person. Oh, it takes a little bit for somebody to put their question in the YouTube chat. My goal today, I want you who are watching right now to be the first. Put that question in and get those questions rolling from our students. So today we are lucky and grateful to be joined by the Hall of Fame's own Mr. Mike Myers. In 2009, Mike graduated from the University of Mount Union with a degree in sport business. And shortly after graduation, he started working for a small but yet global company in Cleveland, Ohio, that specialized in youth basketball, working a lot on the marketing side, where he began to learn Photoshop and the basics of graphic design. After 8 years, the job change, which included one here at the Hall of Fame, which I'm sure we'll get into, a ton of books, ton of YouTube videos, and a lot of trial and error made the transition to become the brand manager and graphic designer here in Canton at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Charge of standardizing the Hall of Fame brand for the first time in its 50-plus year history, developing brand guidelines to be followed throughout the organization. Some other responsibilities include developing new content, ideas for and creative for social media, advertisements, visitation to the museum, branding associated with Enshrinement Week powered by Johnson Controls, sponsorship proposals, and many other miscellaneous projects that come up. That gets to be when that's what happens when the only in-house graphic designer. Throughout the years, the role has evolved and changed to the point where now he is fortunate to be the creative director at the Hall of Fame, where he oversees a team responsible for creative, website, and social media. So without further ado, Mike, welcome to Before the Snap today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always weird when you have to listen to someone else reading a bio of yourself and saying all those nice things and, kind of telling your story. And hopefully as we talk today, we'll kind of get into some of the details of that story and maybe share some advice that, some kids can find relevant, whether they want to be in the creative industry or if they don't, maybe there's some nuggets they can pull out of kind of our conversation today and apply that to their own dreams and aspirations as they start to find what they want to do in their career. So, yeah, you mentioned there that I graduated from the University of Mount Union in 2009 with a sport business degree. That's typically not a typical degree for someone in graphic design and in the creative industry. So I always like to tell folks that, I graduated from Mount Union with sport business, and I graduated from YouTube University with my degree in graphic design, and have hopefully consistently improved along the years to try to create some really cool stuff here for us in Canton and try to amplify what great work happens here at the Hall of Fame, not just, on the marketing side, but obviously on the education side with all the great programs that you guys do and across the building with all of our departments. So I'm excited to kind of get into the conversation today, see what questions we dive into and see where this goes.
I think I'm excited as well. I'm sure Carrie is, and hopefully all of our people viewing the program are as well. The way we like to start out, just kind of give a 10,000 foot view on what a day-to-day look or what a day looks like as a creative director here at the Hall. We mentioned the graphic design, and I'm sure when people hear that, they think, all right, they got the headphones on, staring at the computer screen, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, just making images and content over and over and over. But I know personally, there's a lot more that goes into that. So with your role now as the creative director, what does the day-to-day look like for you?
Well, there are certainly some times where I'm kind of head down, headphones on, noise canceling headphones to try to lock into a creative mindset to build out graphics, whether that's for social media or a sponsorship proposal or any type of program we have going on here. So there's certainly some headphones on, head down kind of time when we're just designing, as the creative director, when I got that role, I didn't lose the in-house graphic designer role. So that is still part of my day-to-day. And that really fluctuates. Today on my to-do list, I have to design a pair of socks. And yesterday I was designing graphics that go out on social media that recognize a potential milestone that Kyle Pitts could achieve this upcoming Sunday. So one of the things I like about the job is there is just on the design side of things, there's a lot of different jobs and projects and things that come across my desk. And then on top of that, it's working with a really talented team we have here with two guys on our staff, Brian McIntyre and Jamel Wilkerson, to oversee our social media and our website and developing those content plans in conjunction with our production team to kind of make sure everything's aligned, make sure we're telling the right stories, amplifying the right messages, each week. So it is a good mix of graphic design, social media content plans, and then also maintaining our website with fresh content, fresh stories. And currently we're redesigning our website for launch here, fourth quarter. So that's also a part of kind of what the team that I'm a part of oversees.
And so it sounds like, when you think of that, probably the negative stereotype is it's the same thing over and over and over that you're doing day to day. And, that can kind of get mundane and, kind of drag you down. But, working in that field, social media, content creation, graphic design, you might be doing the same thing over and over, but it's different every time, if that makes sense. You believe that's the same case for you? And how do you kind of keep these new, fresh ideas coming to make the job not seem mundane, every day you come into the office?
I mean, that's certainly the challenge is always, and that goes for anyone in the creative industry. The main challenge is always staying creative. I mean, the only thing that really stays the same is every time you open up Photoshop, it's a white canvas, and the size of that canvas may change. The problem you need to solve on that canvas is different. So the challenge is always staying creative, but once you kind of start rolling with a certain project, it can go a lot of different ways, and it's it kind of has to go a lot of different ways so that you kind of stay relevant and maintain a, a fresh look and maintain that kind of creative. I'm not sure what the right word is, but that kind of creative base to everything that you do. And you're always trying to improve. I mean, that's what I love about design in some cases is if I open a graphic up that I did 6 months ago, 12 months ago, I hope I hate it because I hope that I've grown over the past 6, 12 months to where I can look at that graphic and go, okay, I can see why I did it that way. But knowing what I know now, I would do it, this way and thinking that that's an improvement on what I did back then. It's a constant chase against yourself to get better. And hopefully you see that steady improvement in everything you do from just a single project that grows over the years, but also kind of across projects and across responsibilities.
And you talk about that advancement, and I think that's a great analogy. You don't want to hate what you do, but you want to see that improvement, day in and day out when you're coming into it. And I think that all falls back to the advancement of technology. Now, you've been a creative director, only a short time here for the last year or so, but you did work in graphic design and had some, graphic design experience before that. So how has the technology changed on your end? You mentioned watching YouTube videos, reading books.
Yeah.
What are some things that our students watching today and you yourself might have done to continue to better your craft and become the greatest creative director that you can be?
You have to just keep learning. I mean, and that's not a creative field thing. Yeah, I mean, we all need to be lifelong learners. And as soon as you think you know everything in your field, you don't. I mean, it's always changing. The technology is always changing. The software always has new functions, new features to it. There's always new mediums to design for, and there's always people that are finding new ways to use the old tools. And that's what's so inspiring about this field is I know out there somewhere there's some 13-year-old kid who grew up with Photoshop who is absolutely killing it and is making things that I couldn't fathom. And that has to push you. It scares you a little bit because that kid's coming for your job at some point, and hopefully you're in a place where okay, I can hire that kid and bring him in part of our team and we can do great things together. But the access that people have to design software now is greater than it ever was. And, I didn't grow up using Photoshop. There are people out there that started using Photoshop when, I don't know, they're 8, 9, 10 years old, and they just are lighting the world on fire with stuff they do. And that's inspiring. It's frightening. And it's fun to watch.
And I think that's true. It's a good idea because, you didn't go to college to be a graphic designer. You wanted to work in sports and that's where you ended up. But it's that idea of continuing to learn and better yourself and trying new things that leads to that advancement. And I'm glad you brought up, kind of the process. And, you talk about, not liking things and liking things. And the one special thing we wanted to do today was give students the opportunity to kind of see what the back end looks like. Normally we sit down in these programs, we ask questions and answers. We go out to the museum, but today with what Mike's job is and the things he does on a day-to-day basis, I think it would be really cool if Mike, if you can kind of give not too much away, because we don't want to give away the secret sauce, but want to kind of show students watching today what the background of some of the things you've either worked on or are currently working on here with your position at the Hall.
Yeah, I'll pull it up. Jake, it says that the host is disabled screen sharing. So if you can hit that on your end, I got some stuff pulled up that we'll walk through. You mentioned there in the intro that part of my role when I took this position 3-4 years ago was the development of our brand guidelines and kind of standardizing our look and feel here at the Hall of Fame. And what I wanted to show you, and it should be on your screen now, and Jake, you can give me a wave if it's not, is a look at some of our content that we developed around Enshrinement Week this past year. And it's a project that I'm proud of because it kept a very consistent look across everything we did from, coverage of the Hall of Fame game, coverage of the enshrinement ceremonies, and just all the festivities that take place here on campus. So what you'll see here on your screen, as I zoom in just a little bit, is this is some of our content from the Hall of Fame game. And we went with a lot of blue and gold. And if I zoom in just a little bit here, hopefully it comes through. I'm not sure how the resolution is on the screen share here, but we have a bronze pattern that is utilized here in the background. If I just kind of change some blend modes and some opacity, you'll kind of see that at full strength. And also then kind of the gold overlay on some of the letters. Obviously we went, I guess I shouldn't say obviously, but we chose the bronze and the gold as some of our textures and our elements in our design look for this year because of the bronze bust, which is unveiled at the enshrinement ceremony, and then the gold in reference to our gold jacket. So that was kind of the look and feel for this year. And if I hit that back, you can kind of see just on this graphic here with Hall of Famers that debuted in the Hall of Fame game. It's not a very complex design. There's certainly more complex designs out there with lighting and whatnot. But just in here, there's a good collection of layers. If I undo all these folders, you can kind of see the different components that go into a single graphic like this. And I'll just hit a couple of these. So like I said, I would classify this as not a very in-depth one, but starting here at the bottom, you can kind of see as I scroll up the different components that go into that single graphic. And I don't know if I had guesstimate how many are in there, but there's a decent amount. And then if we zoom out just a little bit, you can kind of get a sense of how that consistency was hopefully achieved as we move across kind of a graphic for the game, kind of letting people know the time, the place, where they can watch it on TV, final score, halftime score, and a couple other infographics that tied into our social media plan leading up to kickoff. And then we try to carry this forward into our individual enshrinee graphics that we push out during the enshrinement ceremony with one real-time quotes from their speeches, as well as one of the projects I feel very honored to be a part of is the unveiling, at least on social and kind of publicly through social media, the first look at that bronze bust. And you can kind of see we carried that same bronze texture over blue and the bronze over the white back here with the gold lettering as we move across the different graphics for the different enshrinees. If you want to take and stop me if you want, Jake, but part of my responsibilities as part of this enshrinement ceremony is we have a team of 4 of us, Kara's a part of that team, that are in our press box pushing this content out during the enshrinement ceremony. We have our speeches somewhat ahead of time to where we can kind of anticipate, that Edgerrin James is going to say his famous quote here that, I'm forever immortalized number 336 in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The line I loved was, my career started with gold teeth and ended with a gold jacket. So we have a lot of that built out ahead of time, but we're able to react as that speech is going on, adjust the graphics to how the speech was written, to how it was actually said, export, get to our social media team. They upload, post, and we're off and running the entire night. So that's just a little bit of a look inside some of these graphics. You can see on our bus graphic some of the lighting and stuff that we do to try to standardize how those look. And again, just kind of scrolling through some layers here. But we have these templates built this past year for all 19 enshrinees that were given speeches, and then carrying that over to our game content as well. So Jake, is that kind of what you wanted to share? Is there anything else that you would like me to show as I have these open?
No, I think that's a great insight, and it really gives a good look into, I think, there is some sort of stereotype when you see a graphic like that and, it's a template. They, downloaded something that was already previously done. They're copying somebody else, imitation, greatest form of flattery there is, especially when it comes to the design world. But I think the cool thing is that it's not just bing, bang, throw it together, it's out. There's so much work and thought, and it's not just creating a graphic. There's thought that goes into that to making everything aligned to line up, not only that week, but throughout the entire year as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you certainly want to take inspiration from what people are doing in the community. To be as bold as to say that I'm going to design something in a way that no one else has ever done it before is probably a little bit naive. but you certainly want to have kind of your own Hall of Fame look and feel to it. You want to have reasoning behind why you did what you did. I don't want to use what's a good example. I don't want to go and use some waves and some cool water textures and stuff because I saw a graphic that the Dolphins did and thought, man, that looks really cool. We should do that. Well, that's kind of unique to their brand, and that's what makes some of the great content that the Dolphins team puts out, or if it's all of our NFL teams, the Bears do a lot of cool stuff with showing Bears. We're not going to do that. That's not true to us at the Hall of Fame. I want to try to find a way that speaks to our brand, speaks to our fans. And in my mind, using the bronze texture, using the gold texture, and some of the other stuff that we do is uniquely Hall of Fame. And if I can take some techniques that I see other people do and make that my own, make that true to the Hall of Fame, then hopefully we're in a good spot and we're creating some cool stuff. And at the end of the day, we're just trying to tell the story of the guys in the room next to me that have bronze busts and trying to amplify their lives, their careers, and taking the talents we've been given to help honor them and celebrate their inclusion in the Hall of Fame and in their time here in Canton.
I think I'm glad you said that, because at the end of the day, I think every person that works in this building, and this is a new, unique program because all of us work at the Hall of Fame, that at the end of the day, that's the goal. That's the bottom line is we're honoring the 354 Hall of Famers that and realize that's why we have a job. The 354 guys that are enshrined here, it's our job to honor them and get their stories out there. Along the same lines, in creating graphics, not only do you do it for social, but there's stuff truly all around the city of Canton, Ohio that you've helped design. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to throw it to Kara. She's going to talk a little bit about that. And as she's going, I'm going to share my screen so we can talk a little bit about one of the literally biggest graphics that you probably design on a yearly basis. So Kara, the floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Yeah. So thanks, Jake, for sharing your screen to show that picture so we don't have to run outside while it's raining. But yeah, so as you guys can see in a moment, right there is a massive sign featuring the newest Hall of Fame class. And this piece of artwork is the first thing that our guests see when they come into the Hall of Fame, and thousands of others see it as they pass by and drive by on 77. I know when I'm walking into work or walking out, I see guests taking pictures by that photo every single day. So I know as a staff member, it is always exciting to see what you design. I know I love walking past your desk, Mike, and you're like, hey, can you come look at this? Or what we'll use for the next class or what you're going to create next. I love it. It's always so exciting. But it lets us know, like, when you're designing that and we see that going up, it's closer to the busiest time of year. It's closer to Enshrinement Week powered by Johnson Controls. Since we, unfortunately, we're not outside with that, but we would have been. What does it mean to you to see this artwork go up on the side of a building and get to do this project each year?
Wow. I mean, if you would have told 10-year-old me who grew up, 15 minutes from the Hall of Fame, that part of my job that I would get paid to do is to design a 36-foot tall banner that gets to honor the new class of enshrinees and hangs on the side of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I would have told you that was crazy at 10. I probably still tell you it's a little bit crazy. It's one of the coolest things I get to do. It's one of the things that I feel the most honored to do. It probably causes me some of the most stress and anxiety because it is so prominent. And until that thing goes up and I look at it and it's okay, I probably am always anticipating that I'm going to spell Peyton Manning's name wrong or something's going to be incorrect on that banner until it goes up. But it's a very important piece to me. It's something I feel very honored to do. And like I said, if you would have told myself at 10 that, I would get to hang a piece of artwork on the side of the Pro Football of Fame, or as we were just looking, if you would tell me I'd get to design the graphics that give the world or whatever the first look at the bronze bust, I would tell you you're crazy. And I try not to take it lightly because it is a I think it's a huge responsibility, and it's kind of surreal. I don't know. Hopefully that answers the question, but it's a really cool piece to see.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny that you bring up being a 10-year-old and like not expecting to be where you are and stuff like that, because we have Macy Thompson, who's a fifth grader at Glenwood School here in Canton, Ohio. And she's asking, what advice would you give to a young girl looking to break into the industry, specifically video production, but overall, what advice would you give to anybody who's really looking to break into the industry?
Wow. I mean, from a fifth grade level, I guess I would just, if it's what you want to do, just go. You know, I didn't start out my career path in this role. I didn't go to school for this. I kind of got to, I don't remember what age 27, 28, 20, I don't remember, and I kind of thought, I think it'd be kind of cool to do this. And it was kind of a real kind of left-hand turn from my experience, my career. But if it's what you want to do and it's what you feel you have a passion for, then just go get it, and talk to everyone, talk to your mom, your dad, your aunts and uncles, your friends, and someone's got to have connections somewhere to help you learn about this. And, don't let anything get in your way. Don't let anything slow you down. Start watching, as I'd start watching YouTube videos and stuff and see what's out there that you can just kind of start getting, dipping your toe in and seeing if you like it as much as you think you will. But just go.
Gotcha. That's amazing. And you guys, everybody's asking such great questions in the chat. So we're going to ask one more before it goes back to Jake. But we had Will from Fordham University. He's asking, what's the most important thing that helped you get your job that you're doing right now?
Wow, the most important thing to help me get my job. Well, it's a great question. I mean, I would almost go with no job is beneath you. If you want something, like I said, just go get it. I started here at the Hall of Fame in our maintenance department, pounding rebar fence, hanging snow fence for our enshrinement week in 2007. When I was sophomore, junior in college, I'd be in here at 6 a.m. Like I said, in the bus guy, which is right over there, changing the light bulbs that are underneath the bus. So anything you can do to kind of get in is going to help pay off down the road. Like I said, I started doing that as a sophomore in college. I was able to kind of swing that into a internship my junior year here. And then just kind of through those connections and relationships, I got a different job out of college, but I maintained those relationships to where I could come back, 4 years after my graduation date and take a job here at the Hall of Fame. So, you don't always think the job that you're getting right then is going to be your end point, but it may lead to, this, that, and the third. I would also say, when I was in college, I was very obsessed with, when I graduated, I wanted to be able to pull out my business card for my first job and throw it on the table and tell my friends, like, man, look at that. I'm working for the Cleveland Browns, or I'm working for, insert favorite pro sports team, of your liking there. And my first job wasn't that, but it was really the best thing for me. And it gave me the ability to learn a lot of different things. So I think I'm probably rambling a little bit, but in my case, I was overly obsessed with the logo on the business card right out of school and not necessarily what I would learn in my first job and how that learning experience would help me grow into, what I wanted to be down the road.
I gotcha. And that was a great answer too. I loved it. So, but I'm going to throw it back to Jake right now. I think he has some more questions that he's curious about and wants to ask you.
Awesome. Thanks, Kara. Yeah, Mike, I want to kind of, pivot talking that point about the other career and jobs you had here at the Hall of Fame. For those that don't know, we did reference it a little bit in the intro, but Mike, you were a member of our youth and education team. Jerry and I got to work with you for a lot of years up here in the RPC. And, before you changed, you obviously worked with the youth and worked in the education, community relations side of things. And you're right. You talk about a kind of a left turn and how does the youth and education manager become the graphic designer? So can you kind of talk about what it's like to I take advantage, kind of sounds negative, but use those opportunities that you're presented in your job that you are right now, whether you're a youth and education manager or you're working in marketing or you're a college student, how important it is to take the advantages of opportunities presented to you and run with those ideas? Because, that I assume that's where you kind of tailored and learned a lot more of your graphic design skills, doing some independent projects and work within your job leading up to becoming the actual graphic designer.
Yeah. And, I kind of, this is not in my comfort zone. Some may actually say it is, but I don't, it feels kind of like I'm bragging about some of the stuff that I've done in my past and how that's worked out. I don't want it to come off like that. So if it is, I apologize. But, when I was at my first job out of school, it was with a company called the National Basketball Academy. And they did youth camps, clinics, leagues, tournaments for NBA teams all over the country. And we had a large footprint, but there was like a staff of 6 of us in the kind of the headquarters office. And the one day I went down to our IT guy, who was our IT guy, but also kind of did a lot of our design and flyers and collateral, all that type of stuff. And it's like, hey, you got an extra Photoshop license? Like, I've always heard people talk about Photoshop and why don't you just Photoshop it and that type of thing. I was like, you got an extra one? I like to just kind of play around and trial and error and figure some stuff out and see if it's kind of cool. And if I can make some cool graphics for our flag football team and do some stuff like that. And he had one. I started playing around and, I just kind of fell in love with that process and, the problem solving side of graphic design and learning new things and the constant, battle for improvement and doing things different ways and better ways and improving on what I had done the last time around. And when I was doing that at that job, learned a lot. I was able to then use my relationships that I mentioned via my internship to come back here, kind of come back home to the Hall of Fame and join the youth and education team and sit on the other side of this conversation a little bit where you're at, Jake. And as part of that, we didn't really have an in-house designer. So some departments had their own freelance people they were able to work with, but in education, I had learned a little bit enough to where I could design some stuff that we need in the education department and continue to, hone the craft and get a little bit better and learn to where, 4 years after being in education, we had a job opening up here for our first in-house designer position. And, I was lucky enough to be selected for that. But so, yeah, you certainly want to use your relationships to, okay, I can make that move from this department to that department. But if I hadn't spent the previous, 6, 7, 8 years just kind of playing around in my free time, kind of designing as a hobby, I wouldn't have been ready and prepared at that moment to take that position. And so you kind of got to have that work in ahead of time to make sure you can capitalize on that opportunity when it presents itself. And I would say today, when I took that position, I wasn't ready for it, and have certainly, I believe, grown from that point to this point to really do the brand justice and promote the Hall in the way it should be promoted. And we're still improving on that. But I guess when you talk about those relationships and being able to take advantage of those opportunities, it's that old, you'll correct me if I say this wrong, Jake, because I probably will, that, opportunity is when preparation and luck, whatever, what that is. It's on a piece of collateral. Say it correctly for me.
What is it? Opportunity when preparation meets practice or something along those lines?
Yeah, it's
everybody watching.
Everyone go Google that. Go Google that one. Everyone knows what that. It's a famous quote, but that's a 3-second way of saying what I spent, 3-4 minutes trying to say.
And, I want to kind of dive into some tips and tricks for that next generation, because, that this program here is obviously to learn about what a creative director does or what folks do in and around the NFL. But, we're here to provide some insight too, because, everybody here, Kara, myself, we were all in those student seats one day trying to get all that experience that we could. So looking at all those college students who are tuned in today, obviously when we've touched on a little bit, networking is huge, and it's a huge piece. It's something, looking back, I wish I did better in preparing myself for my future. So looking at your job, why is it important? Is networking important? How do you do it? in college? How do you get started? And then even as a young professional, why is it important to continue building your network and not just, all right, I got a full-time job, I'm good, I'm going to stop. Why is it important to continue to build your network as you get further along in your career?
Well, you never know where people are going to end up in their career path and how your paths may cross again. You know, when you're first starting out, a lot of the friends you're going to make and a lot of connections you're going to make are likely people around your same age at your same career level. But that's not always going to be the case. Their careers are going to grow. Your career is going to grow. And as you guys grow, you're going to go to different places. You're going to get different jobs. And a friend you made at an entry-level job fresh out of college, you both may grow, and that may result in a leadership position in another organization 5 years down the road. So you never know when paths may cross and how different people you meet how their careers are going to go and how, you guys can meet up again somewhere. But I think when I was in school, I was very nervous to network. I was very intimidated. Why is the Pro Football Hall of Fame, manager of youth and education, or Carrie, your senior producer, or creative director? Why are they going to care to talk to me? Like what? Like I'm not going to bother them. They got enough going on. They don't want to hear from this junior in Kansas and answer my questions. What I'm going to be. A nuisance to them. And that's not the case. We were all in those shoes. We were all looking for connections, looking for opportunities, looking to learn, looking to kind of get an idea of what we wanted to do when we were in school. And just because we're not in school anymore doesn't mean that we forget about that. So I think when I was there, I was very intimidated to ask people advice, or very intimidated to reach out with questions, or even to send thank you notes or that type of stuff. And, I would just say to myself, I should have gotten out of my own way. And if that's you sitting there listening today, get out of your own way and reach out to people. I mean, if they say no, they say no, move on about your day and don't take it personal. And, it's that old salesman thing. You only need one person to say yes, but most part, everyone's been in those situations, and they're going to be very open to having conversations, just like people had conversations with them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because it's something I think that not only can, high school kids, college kids, but even young professionals can take to heart to continue to build their network. I got a ton more questions I'd love to ask, but we're not here for me to ask questions. We're here for our students to ask questions today. And I know Kara's sitting on a bunch of other questions she wants to ask from our viewers. So I'm going to throw it back to her for some more of our students' questions.
Yeah, definitely. You guys are asking great questions. But before I do that, I looked up your guys' quote. So I looked it up, and it's from actually Hall of Fame coach Jimmy Johnson. And he said, success happens when opportunity meets preparation. So there you guys go. Knowledge is power.
It only took 3 of us.
Close. Yes, exactly. And Google. But anyways, so sorry guys, I'm looking up top because I have my questions above me. But so we have Charles from Kentucky State University, and his question is, do you ever work with athletes directly, or have you ever had graphic design commissions outside of the office?
Good question, Charles. Yes, we've worked with some athletes directly, mainly some Hall of Famers, if they need something for some project they're working on, or if they just need some photos for what they're doing. We have a great relationship through our Gold Jacket relations team, where they can reach out and say, hey, can you help me with this, that, and the third? And we're more than happy to help them with that. Projects outside the office, I think majority of people in the creative field have, some freelance work that they do. I would say one thing that I've done outside of the office that also kind of ties to my responsibilities here was downtown Canton. We just unveiled the Centennial Plaza, which, if you guys probably aren't aware of it, go look it up. It's a impeccable facility in downtown Canton. It has a kind of a monument for the first 100 years of the NFL and some other stuff. But being able to do the logo for that facility was a great honor. To design something that is going to sit in the city downtown, which hopefully is there for decades and decades, is a piece that I was very proud of and has some lasting life to it. A lot of what we design is, if it's for social media, you design it and it's gone in an hour. So a piece like that that has some staying power, some lasting power, with something that's kind of outside the office, but still part of my responsibilities here a little bit, that I was involved in.
Gotcha. So this is a fun one. I think since you brought up logos, I'm going to ask this one.
Sure.
Someone asked in the chat, do you know what the history is of the current Hall of Fame logo?
You know what? It's a great question because I don't. We were just talking about it the other day, because we have a really old logo, which is kind of it's the side of a full player. It's kind of an old helmet one, which we're going to be bringing back a little bit more, which everyone internally loves and does great on merchandise. We're going to be using that a little bit more. So I don't know the full story of the current Hall of Fame logo. You know, everyone always asks if that Hall of Fame text is a font. Can I have that font? And that's some custom lettering that was done. And obviously then the outline of the building on there. So I don't know the full story behind it. It's something that we've tried to research and try to find and see who did the lettering and all that kind of stuff. But as I mentioned, you know, this is the first time we've had an in-house designer. So when that was done, it's a little bit harder to track down who did that and the files behind it. And, you know, I would totally nerd out and love to see the sketches and the drawings and the different concepts and see the whole creative process to how we got where we're at today with that logo. Cause you know, it is a iconic logo. And when everyone sees that, they kind of know what that logo means and the excellence it stands for.
I gotcha. So we're going to take it back a little bit to when you and Jake were talking about networking and stuff. We have Taylor from University of Scranton. She's asking, what tips do you have? What are your best tips for networking and tips specific to finding network opportunities within the sports industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think being involved in programs like this is a great start. You know, the Hall of Fame is not the only one that offers these type of programs to just get involved in and learn about different careers. I think, you know, tuning into these type of programs is a great step one. But then following up on those programs and trying to reach out to the speakers or the organizations that put it on and just kind of getting those tentacles out there and expanding those relationships. You know, I think it's very easy to send LinkedIn messages and emails, and I'm not looking down on those at all because it's great technology. We should utilize the technology we have at our fingertips. But, you know, old school writing handwritten letters to people is really cool. I know Peyton Manning, a member of class 2021, is famous for always writing handwritten letters to people. And I think that's if you're looking for ways to stand out amongst the crowd, trying to get creative in the ways that you follow up with people is a great way to do it, especially in the creative industry. If that's what you want to get into, you got to try to find a way to separate yourself from the noise a little bit.
Yeah, I gotcha. That's great advice too for all these college students watching. But I know Jake has some more questions, so I'm going to throw it back to him in the studio.
Awesome. Yeah. We're going to kind of start to near the end of our program here. So I got some I want to ask, and I do want to get back to Kara one more time to ask some final questions from our YouTube chat. But, you know, normally when we're talking to people who work with NFL teams, the one question we like to come up is because it is so cool to work in sports, work for an NFL club, there are some situations that you find yourself in that are, you don't really believe that you're there. There's these moments you get to be a part of that are super cool that people literally would probably pay millions of dollars to be a part of. So kind of a two-parter here. Have you had that moment, Mike, here at the Hall of Fame? And kind of off of that, now that you're in a different role working with creative and content, is there a piece that you've done that looking back on it that you're most proud of? You know, you talk about the Centennial Plaza logo, but if you had to stop right now and think, what's my favorite graphic I created? What is the one that comes to mind?
Wow, no pressure on the second part of that question. I guess I'll try to answer that one first. The graphic I'm most proud of, or the graphic that means the most to me. Wow. This is. I'll answer in two different ways. We've talked about the one, you know, the banner and the bust unveils. Those are really cool. That's not a single graphic, but that's a single responsibility that is really cool. I'm really proud of. I guess, you know, if I had to say the graphics that mean the most to me are the most impactful, they're not work ones. I did a really silly graphic to unveil, that my wife and I were having our first child. I designed to save the date for our wedding. There's those type of things that I guess when you talk about graphics that have the most meaning to you, it's not work stuff. It's some of those personal things that you get to kind of use your skills to create something unique and special to yourself. And what was the first part of the question, Jake?
Favorite moment within your career in sports, your
Okay.
prior career, your time here in the youth education department, or even now with your job in the marketing side, creative director. Step back, favorite moment you've gotten to be a part of.
Two of them, one football, one music, and you probably know the music one. Football one, I was part of my responsibilities for whatever reason. And I think you've had this responsibility too, maybe for a year, is, you're backstage for the enshrinement, and, the guys are going out on stage on the bus, give their speeches, and, being in that green room downstairs, seeing kind of the pregame jitters and pregame energy by our Hall of Famers as they get ready to kind of take that stage for the first time. Being down there with Brett Favre as a kid who grew up in the 90s and fell in love with football in the 90s, that was the era for me where, Michael Jordan never missed a shot. Barry Sanders never got tackled. And Brett Favre was constantly throwing touchdown passes and running around the field with his helmet off like a little kid. And to be one of the last guys on stage that Brett saw before he went out and unveiled his bust is really cool and surreal. And then the non-sports one, Garth Brooks. I was a huge Garth Brooks fan growing up. He did a concert in Cleveland. As part of that concert, he has a foundation, Teammates for Kids, and they held a football camp here. And we got to host that football camp, and I got to meet Garth and had some cool conversations with him from the concert the night before. So those are probably the two things that I would tell you would be a fantasy if I didn't live myself.
I'm sure when you started your career in sports, you didn't think that Garth Brooks was going to be your coolest moment answer down the road. So do you want to throw it back to Kara one last time to wrap up with some questions from our YouTube audience? So Kara, we'll throw it to you and then we'll start to wrap the program.
Yes, definitely. So we have one last question, and it's from Kai from Babson College. And he asked, when you were in college, what was something and or someone that helped you with finding your passion for graphic design?
Well, in college, I didn't really know I wanted to do design. It wasn't until that first job out of school when I just started playing around with Photoshop and just kind of started to learn a little bit more that I fell in love with it. I would say, if I were to go back to college, my two professors at University of Mount Union, Dr. Toma and Dr. Kalachek, still great friends today. They were and are great mentors for not just me, a lot of people who graduated from that program in the sports industry and have done a great deal of service to a lot of lives out there, finding what they're passionate about. So I would tell, kids in school, hopefully you're in a situation where you have professors, and I would imagine most professors are very passionate about what they're teaching about, to lean on them and hopefully they can be mentors for you and really help you grow in the professional side of things. And that's, the things you learn in the classroom and the things that you learn outside the classroom.
Yeah, definitely. That was a great answer, but that's it from our end on the YouTube chat and everything like that. So Jake, I'll send it to you to wrap it up.
Awesome. Thank you, Kara. And I'd be remiss to say if we didn't send a special thank you out to Kara today. Today is actually her last day here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So we want to thank her for everything she's done, not only for our department, because she's helped us out with so many great things, but for everything she's done for the Hall of Fame. So wanted to get that little plug in there. I told her I wasn't going to do it, but I think in the back of my mind, I was going to throw that in there at the end. So Kara, thank you so much again for all your help.
Thanks, Jake. I really appreciate it. Thanks for letting me be a part of this too. I love this program. So it's been great.
Certainly will be missed.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
And Mike, as we're wrapping up here, just two quick questions I want to end with, and then we'll wrap the program. The old adage is you never work a day in your life if you love what you do. And I think, and when you step back and look, you go, well, if you're creative director, and how do you love working on your computer? I guess how does that work? So but it's way much more than that, and we've touched on the importance and what these graphics mean. It's more than just an image. So why does Mike Myers love being the creative director at the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Man, save the tough ones for last, huh, Jake? Jeez. I think, to be able to tell the stories and keep the legacies alive for all the great men and players that are enshrined here is a tremendous honor. To be able to do that and to be able to tell their stories and amplify their messages and educate people about their careers in a way that I find extremely interesting and ever-changing, and always ways to do it better. And that's just, it's a great melting pot of things I enjoy. I'm a football nut. I drive my wife crazy because we'll watch, the Thursday night game last night during the high school season. We'll be at a high school game, watching that. We'll watch college games on Saturday, NFL on Sunday, NFL on Monday night. I'm in here 5 days a week, surrounded by football, and it's rinse and repeat all year round, especially during football season. So for a guy that always was in love with sports and certainly is in love with football, to be able to do that as a job is a joke. So yeah, hopefully that answers that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that, everybody kind of has the same framework to why they love what they do, but everybody always has the different reasoning behind it. Whether you love working in the community, or you love the impact that you're doing, or you just love seeing the final product. So it's cool to kind of see all the different answers we got for that. And not to keep the hard questions rolling, but every program, no matter if we're talking to NFL employees, people who are working around the game, our Gold Jackets, our Hall of Famers, the last question I always like to ask and to wrap everything up, because it kind of sums everything up pretty well, is if anybody who watched today, including myself and Kara, all of our viewers we have on YouTube, and people who are going to watch this for years to come, what is that last nugget, that last piece of advice that you want somebody to walk away with today?
To never let it become stagnant. And I think that's one of the things I love about the creative side of things is there's always ways to do it better. There's always new things to learn. There's always different techniques. There's always, even if it's the same technique, you can do it better. It's a constant improvement. It's a constant learning process. There's always someone out there either doing it better or on the verge of doing it better that's coming from behind you. And it's not to be, it's a healthy fear almost, but that you should always be improving no matter what you do. And, the moment that you just kind of let it rinse and repeat and you become stagnant, then in my opinion, you've kind of lost the passion for what you're doing. You should always be looking for ways to improve on what you did before and ways to make things better. And if you can, it's that old Tom Brady's like that. If you can find joy in like the practice and in the process and not just the end result, then you found kind of what you're meant to be doing. And I think I found that here, not just at the Hall of Fame, but in kind of the craft that I'm in. By no means am I the best designer out there by any stretch of the imagination. You can go on Twitter and there's thousands of people doing it better than me, and I am okay with that. But if you have a passion for what you're doing, you're bound to be successful at it. And then surround yourself with people that continue to push you. I mentioned earlier on, we got a great team here. I can design all the great graphics that I want. I can think they look amazing. If I don't get them to Brian McIntyre to put on social media, then they can look amazing on my computer and no one sees them. So I can't do it. I can't, no one knows what I do unless I have Brian next to me pushing that message out, or I have Jermel next to me, helping get that stuff on the website and redesign a website that amplifies that and email. I mean, you're only as good as the guy next to you, and we have a great team here. So I would just say, find something that you find joy in the process, and then surround yourself with people that are like mind and continue to push you to do better at what you're passionate about.
I think that's a great way to wrap it up. Tie it all back into the game of football and how important it is to work great beside that person beside you. So with that, we're going to wrap up this latest installment of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Before the Snap series. Mike, again, thank you so much for being a part of the program and everything you do for us here at the Hall of Fame, whether it's taking photos, working on graphics, helping all of the other departments here at the Hall of Fame with everything they need. Thank you so much for everything you do for us here at the Hall of Fame. I would be remiss to say, follow the Hall of Fame on all of our social platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, to see all these great graphics that Mike is putting out. Everybody tune out today. Now, when you see a graphic, the guy who worked on it on the back end and even got to see a little bit about that process. Our Mission podcast hosted by Jameer Howerton. If you're a podcast listener, tune into that. A lot of great content coming out from him. Sitting down, I saw one pop up on my phone yesterday with Dan Deerdorf talking about that team up north, the University of Michigan, that it hurts me to say, the Cardinals team and all their success as well. So tune into those and hear all about the great things going on here at the Hall of Fame. For all of our students who tuned in today, if you want a sneak peek into what the next month of Before the Snap looks like, send us an email, education@profootballhof.com, and we'll make sure you are notified when we roll out all of our new programming. You saw the chat today. If you want to connect with Mike on LinkedIn, the link in there is to do that. Let him know you saw him on Before the Snap. If your question didn't get asked, because we didn't get to some of those, ask your question directly to him there. If you have any questions about your career or things you might want to know, reach out to us again at education@profootballhof.com. We're here to help you move forward throughout your career. Next week, we're going to stay right here in Canton, Ohio, and we are going to be interviewing one of our great teammates, Rachel Gutting. Just going to kind of put that out there. If you are interested in an internship here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, this is the program you're going to want to tune into to hear all about our summer internship program. As I said at the beginning, the game of football goes throughout the entire year, and whether you work for the NFL, you work for Madden, you work for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, you work for anybody, the game of football is a full year job. And, we're super excited to see all these different careers tied in and all the great work that goes into making that final product the best that it can be. So for myself, from Mike, Kara, all of our team here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, thank you so much for tuning in today. And we hope to see you next week here for the Pro Football Hall of Fame